courage that it takes not only to survive trauma, but to rise from it with meaning, with resolve, and with hope. The two individuals we are honored to be hearing from tonight are former hostages of October 7th. Their presence here tonight is nothing short of a miracle. On that black day, the world shifted for them in an instant. Ordinary life was replaced by fear, by uncertainty, by a constant loss of control that few of us can truly fathom, let alone comprehend. What I just gave you was a hug I've been envisioning for some years now. And it's a hug that I believe represents every single member of our community, and by extension, Jewish communities around the world. In the past, I've met some individuals who had been released, and they shared that they were moved to know that every single Shabbat for the past few years, our congregation stands and we say a special prayer. And those words of prayer were direct connections to each of you during the difficult times you experienced. We weren't there physically, of course, but emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. Again, I think I speak on behalf of so many here tonight. We felt like we were there. We felt we were connecting, and we prayed, and we hoped, we galvanized, we did what was possible on our end to try to serve as beacons of strength and support in the most difficult of moments. And at the end, if we have some time, we're going to welcome some questions as well. Sapir, if it's okay, we'll start with you. If you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who was Sapir Cohen on the day of October 6th? And what happened on that terrible day?
Hello everyone. Hello everyone. We are so excited to be here, first time in London. So before the October 7, I didn't feel a part of our nation. I didn't watch the news. I didn't know what the situation in Israel. And unfortunately, I didn't really care. I just focused in myself, in my personal life, in the people that close to me. I lived my life in a bubble, I think like most of the people, and I didn't look outside. I finished my degree in software engineering. After that, I found a work, and I decided that this is the right time to get to know someone and to build my own family. So I decided to download all the dating apps, and in one of them I met Simone. My journey began before the October 7, 6 months before, something like that. I had anxieties. It's something that I never felt before. I felt that something very bad will happen to me, and I didn't know why, because I had a normal life. And my feelings became so strong, and during the time when I saw that nothing happened to me, I was sure that I have the illness in my body and I just need to discover it. So I decided to go to many doctors. I did many tests. And one of them told me, yes, you're right, you have something. I found virus in your body. But don't worry, it's not too dangerous as your feelings. But I didn't believe them because my feelings were so bad and so strong. I felt like I was standing in front of a very bad situation that just God can keep me. And for the first time in my life, I decided to pray. And I was looking for prayer. I was very embarrassed about my feelings, so I just asked some religious people in my work, but they didn't know what I was supposed to say in this situation. One day, I remember that I watched in my Instagram, and then I saw an advertising. It was chapter in Tehillim. They wrote there that if you read it for 30 days, you will be healthy and miracles will happen to you. So I'm saying, okay, this is what I wanted. I decided to say it every day. After a few days, I remember the whole chapter, and it's very long and complicated words. I never remember things. All my life, so yeah, but I cheated in the history exams. And I decided to focus in the words that I'm saying, the prayer, not just keep saying that. And then I realized that the prayer is not related to medicine, it's related to war, and God saved me from the enemies. And when I say that, I just thought to myself, like, why I say this prayer? From which kind of war are you praying to be saved? On October 6th, on Friday, we decided to go to Kibbutz Nir Oz in South Israel to visit his parents. They live there. We wanted to celebrate with them Simchat Torah. I remember from that weekend that Sasha told me that he doesn't want to go there, and I was very surprised because all the time he told me, Sapir, if I say to my parents that I come, I never cancel. I don't want to harm my mother. But in that weekend he told me, Sapir, I don't want to go, I don't know why, just cancel that. But I didn't want, because if to be honest, our relationship before the October 7 wasn't so good. So I didn't want to be with him all the weekend alone. I prefer to go to his parents. And finally I convinced him. We arrived to the kibbutz on Friday, and I remember that on Friday night we sat with his friend and we watched a movie about kidnap and murder. And one of his friends said, I can't see that, I'm too scared. We didn't think and we didn't feel that the day after we will experience that even in the worst way. On Saturday, on October 7, I remember that I woke up maybe at 6 in the morning, very early, because I heard the rockets. It was like boom, 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 very, very strong. And at first I didn't understand what happened. And then I heard Tseva Adom, the alarms. I'm from North Israel, so I got used to this situation. And then I asked Sasha what we're supposed to do, because we were in a guest room, in a very small room, with no shelter. And I told him, Sasha, I want to go to your parents. It's just 2 minutes walking. I just want to go to your parents to enter to the shelter. And he told me, Sapir, we have to wait. We have to wait for silence between the rockets, and then we will go. So we waited. But he doesn't come. We couldn't find even 20 seconds of silence to run to his parents and to enter to the shelter. We decided to lie down near the wall because we felt that it's more safe. And this is what we did for an hour of rockets. After an hour, we got a message from his mother, and after this message, I remember that Sasha opened an article in his phone, and I saw terrorists are slaughtering Gaza and the army doesn't come. I saw this title, and it was from Kibbutz Be'eri. It's 10 minutes from us. And I was so scared. I didn't understand what happened, what the meaning of terrorists came inside the kibbutz, terrorists killed people. I was so scared, but I believe that the army on the way, I believe that it's happened just in one specific kibbutz. But after a few minutes, we got another message. I remember that Sasha looked at his phone and just turned it around. So I understood what happened, but I didn't want to believe it. So I asked him, Sasha, tell me what the message. And he told me, no matter what, just be quiet. He asked me if I locked the door, and I was so scared, so I couldn't even go and check the door, but I know that because my anxiety is every night I lock all the places, all the doors. I decided in that moment just to take a blanket and to put it over myself. I decided that I don't want to see anything. We just hide under the bed because there is no place to hide there. And then I heard screams of Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. I heard maybe hundreds of terrorists came inside the kibbutz, and I heard shooting everywhere. It's like they go home by home and shooting everywhere, everyone, and I heard just screams in Arab and screams of the people that live in the kibbutz. And we just waited 2 hour turn. I remember this time I was terrified. I was shaking. All my body was water. I was sure that this is the last time of my life. And I just started to pray. I say my prayer again and again and again. And when I say that, I felt a little bit peace inside of me, and I asked myself, like, how can I feel peace in this situation? And I heard the terrorists came close and close, and finally I heard them near the door, and they tried to break the door, but they couldn't. And after a few minutes they left. And then I was a little bit happy, but I understood that it's not finished. And another group came to us. They showed the lock, and they came very quickly inside the room. They just took everything in the room. They broke everything. I heard a high level of noise. And then they took me from the blanket. I saw in front of my eyes maybe 10 terrorists. At first I thought that maybe it's the army. I was in shock. And then I understood that it's not. The October 7 was the day number 30, the last day that I supposed to say my prayer, and I say this prayer until today. I felt that it gives me something that nobody and nothing can give me the power of this prayer.
Extremely difficult to keep sharing and to retell and to relive. Sasha, how about you? Who was Sasha Troufanov on October 6th? What was your experience on that day?
So, a little bit about myself. I was born in Russia, and I made Aliyah with my parents when I was 3.5 years old. My first memory is actually from Kibbutz Nir itself. I remember opening the van door, that we arrived to the kibbutz and seeing the first house, seeing a lot of green and grass. And this is the way the kibbutz was. Peaceful, beautiful place, beautiful community, very small. And as I became older and older, I decided that I need to leave the kibbutz. I went to learn at university. I studied electrical engineering. I finished the degree and started working in Amazon. Maybe some of you heard about it from the news and the media about Amazon not supporting enough, but this was my work before October 7. And eventually we decided to go to the kibbutz on October 6 to spend the holiday with my parents in the kibbutz. And when everything started to unfold, and the rockets started to fall, and the sirens were going off, as Sapir said, I took it pretty lightly. And the reason was that unfortunately in the south, we experienced more than once war. Not only in specific times that there were war with Gaza, but even in normal days they might fire a rocket or two. It would have happened in the past, and I said to myself, maybe this is the same thing happening again. I wanted to believe that it will stop. And unfortunately it didn't, and it kept going and going. And I understood that the situation is different than everything that happened before. I started receiving text messages from my friends and family, from my mother, from my friends in the kibbutz, from my friends from outside. One particular friend was in the quick reaction force of the kibbutz. He was part of this force, but he wasn't present in the kibbutz at that time. So he was receiving all the correspondence on WhatsApp, but he was able to actually read it all and give me a brief about what is happening in the kibbutz. And one of the last messages he sent me was that there are terrorists in the kibbutz and you should find cover. I didn't know what to do in that situation, to be honest. I didn't prepare any plan for that. I couldn't imagine that a day would come and terrorists would infiltrate this kibbutz. So I told Sapir we should be quiet. We found shelter in the only place we had, in the corner of the room. We moved the bed closer to us to find coverage. And we waited, and we started hearing all these shooting sounds around us, these screams. And I wanted to believe that there is a war going on between the terrorist group and the army forces and the quick reaction force of the kibbutz. I wanted to believe that this is what is happening, but unfortunately it wasn't the case. What happened actually was hundreds of terrorists infiltrating the kibbutz, going home by home and destroying everything. But I didn't hear it at the time. And when they came first to the door and tried to break it open, I told myself, this is it. I have no way to defend myself or Sapir. I have just nothing to do. I felt hopeless and scared and terrified even. And eventually when they left, I felt some sort of relief. I wanted to believe that this is it, but it wasn't, and they came back. Probably a different group with rifles, because at that time they shut the lock and opened the door, came inside. Sapir was covered in blankets. She wrapped herself with blankets so she couldn't see anything. But I could see, and I looked towards the entrance to the room from the corner across the room where we were laying on the floor. And I remember seeing this army boot and army clothes, but very different from the IDF uniform. I understand that those are terrorists immediately, and I also understand that they are armed. They found us very quickly. The terrorists flipped the bed. It was a wooden frame, very light wooden frame with a very light mattress. So he flipped it with one hand. My instinct was just to stand up in front of him, wearing only underwear. And I'm standing with my hands up, facing the gun at me, and started to scream something in Arabic, and I couldn't understand anything, but my instinct was to just yell at him in English. We are civilians, leave us alone, we are civilians. But he didn't seem to mind much. He started screaming towards me, and he looked back and screamed something towards the outside. And 10 terrorists came rushing into the room. And I noticed that some of them went to the corner where Sapir was laying and started to untangle her from the blankets, and I didn't understand what is going on, but I knew that they will eventually get her. And what was worrying me at that point is that she was wearing a very small pajama. She was wearing a nightie, and I was afraid of them seeing her this way. I didn't want them to get the thought of doing her something physical, and it was at that moment, even when the guns were facing me, it was frightening me. And I started to convince them to give her clothes. I was talking to the terrorists with the guns in front of my face, give her clothes, give her something to wear. And they just didn't understand or didn't care much. One of the terrorists took a pair of jeans pants that were near him. He brought them to me and told me to wear them in Arabic, but it's very similar to Hebrew. So I did, and they told me to get down on my knees. And while I was still trying to convince them to give her something to wear, one of the terrorists approached me and just punched me to the face. And in that exact moment I understood that if I'm not getting out, not standing up and getting out of the room, we would just be killed in that room. So I stood up, they started dragging me, taking me away from Sapir towards the entrance. And when we exited on the entrance to this room, I felt this very sharp, concentrated pain in my shoulder. It felt like a punch, but very, very strong. So I looked back, and I see this terrorist with a knife, with so much anger in his face, a kitchen knife, and he wasn't wearing any uniform or nothing. He didn't have a gun, because if he had a gun, he would probably have shot me. But he had a knife, and he stabbed me, and he tried to stab me even more times. But the terrorists themselves stopped him from doing that, probably because they wanted me alive. They put me on the ground with my knees, on my knees, on the corner of the outside of the room. And the last thing I saw before they took my head down and I couldn't see anything anymore was Sapir being led by 3 or 4 terrorists grabbing her. And one terrorist from outside, he wasn't part of this group, came and grabbed her towards the right side, the opposite from where I was. And that's it. They told me to stand up, marched me toward a motorcycle, grabbing me. And when I reached this motorcycle, maybe 50 meters away from where the room was, and I'm standing there looking at this motorcycle while they are surrounding me, just thinking what to do, I remember telling myself, you are not gonna die this way, there is no way. For me, being taken to Gaza was the same as death. I thought to myself, there is no way they will keep me alive. And I told myself, you will do something in order to evade the situation. You will not go just like that. And with all the panic, I'm telling you, I was so afraid. I was in shock, I couldn't even think straight. I started to run away, although they were armed, although there were much many of them than me. And I started running the opposite direction. And when I lift my head up, I see so many terrorists in front of my eyes. I couldn't imagine. I saw terrorists burning trees. Some of them started shooting at me, some of them are throwing things at me. Some of them destroying porches of houses nearby. I managed to run maybe 100 meters, a little bit more, until I was stopped by 2 armed terrorists. At that point, I understand that I'm cornered, so I lift my hands up. The group that was chasing me approached me, a distance of maybe 1.5 meters away. And I remember one of them started to scream at me, and at the same time the rifle started going off, and I'm hearing the bullets near my legs until one of them, the first bullet entered my right leg. It pierced luckily, my muscle and flesh. It didn't hit the bone. I remember the pain. I remember feeling a little bit of relief that it didn't hit the bone. I could still stand. But for a split second, I had hope that they missed me. But unfortunately, after the split second, my left leg was hit by another bullet, which pierced my bone, broke it completely. And because I was standing, my leg couldn't hold the weight, so it just cracked, bended, and I fall down to the ground in a lot of pain, screaming. And one of the other terrorists from behind with the rifle just hit me on the back of my head and opened my head. At that point, I lost consciousness for maybe a second or two, and when I realized what is happening around me, I see those terrorists debating, arguing between themselves probably what to do. I believe that some of them wanted to kill me and that's it. The other wanted to take me alive as an hostage. Luckily, this is what happened, and they grabbed me, one from the shoulders, one from the legs. As I told you, one of the legs is completely broken, but they still grabbed me from that, put me on a motorcycle between two other terrorists, covered my face with some sort of a cover that I couldn't see through. And it was unfortunate that I couldn't see through, because when I was driving through the kibbutz on this motorcycle between those two terrorists, I saw this beautiful place, this amazing green, calm place being destroyed in front of my eyes. Smoke coming out of houses, people that are now gone, people that I knew. Houses being destroyed, trees being burned down, terrorists running around in the streets. The civilians used to walk by peacefully. And all the way to Gaza, I remember speaking to the terrorists, trying to convince them, like, I don't care, I understand that I'm probably gonna die, but leave me alone. Hey, sorry, leave Sapir alone, he can take me, I don't care. But leave Sapir alone. He didn't really mind, he called me Johnny. He told me, Johnny, you know what, you're going to the safest place in the world. You have nothing to worry about. He thought that, nobody can get me. When we reached the border, I remember that we hit a bunch of sand was there, and we fell from the bike. Of course, I couldn't stand, so I just fell to the ground, and I wasn't in the best consciousness. I lost a lot of blood and all the pain, and made me a little bit blurry, but I remember the sounds of civilians started to gather around me. And I remember first of all they started to curse me in Arabic, Hebrew. I didn't mind much, I wasn't caring, but the moment after they started to beat me, I felt the punches, the kicks. I was going through something that's called the lynch, in a sense. It's when you're sworn with punches and kicks until you die. But thank God I didn't die. Although I thought that this is my last moment. The terrorists grabbed me after, a couple of minutes from this group of civilians, dragged me and put me into a car and started driving toward Gaza.
How about you?
That they took me out of the room and they put me on the bike with two terrorists, one in front and one behind. Then we did a little drive in the kibbutz, I'm not sure why, but before we left, I saw Sasha run away and I heard shooting to his direction, but I couldn't see what happened to him. And then we left the kibbutz. I remember that in the middle of the way to Gaza, the terrorist behind me decided to stop driving, and then he owed me, he wanted to take me from the bike. So I looked around myself, I wanted to see to where. And I saw that I'm in the middle of nowhere. So I didn't understand why he wanted to take me there. And in that moment, I was so scared. He was the armed terrorist. And I didn't know what to do. I decided to hug the terrorist in front of me. He was the other one. And I just hugged him tightly and I'm saying, I'm a kid, I'm a kid, I'm a kid. I wanted to give him a sense of responsibility, like he could be my father. And then he looked at me and he said, I know, shut up. But then he told to the other terrorist, Khalas, no, no, no. And he decided to continue to Gaza. In that moment, I was, I can say happy, but I had a little bit relief that I continue in my way because I understood that something worse could be happening to me. After that, I came inside Gaza and I saw like thousands of people. Like all the streets was full of civilians and they are all celebrate, they are all encourage the terrorists. I just look around myself and I couldn't believe that it's real what I see. I saw many cameras around me. I look to all the cameras because I wanted that my family will know that I'm kidnapped, that I'm a hostage in Gaza. And when the civilians saw that I look at them, they just came to beat me. In that point, the terrorists decided probably to take me alive, and they put something on my head to cover myself, to cover me, and they just hold each other to protect my head from the civilians. And then I came to the first house in Gaza. All this way, I believe that I'm the only hostage, and just when I came to the first house, I understood that I'm not the only one.
Sapir, what was going through your mind during this point, but also after that, during captivity? What were some of the things you were able to draw on that gave you strength, that gave you a certain sense of resilience and desire, the will to live on no matter what you faced?
I remember the first days in the captivity. I had many thoughts. Like, I thought why I convinced Sasha to go to the kibbutz, why I did it. He didn't want to go there. And maybe if I would run and would hide in a different place, it wouldn't happen to me. Why I didn't run to the pool and dive under, and all these thoughts, if and if and if. I felt that it's explode my head. And then I say to myself that I have to think in a different way. I believe in person. I was always believing in God, even that I never prayed before. And I say to myself that if God decided to send me to this place, it's because I'm supposed to be there. In my world, there is no luck. There is no good luck and no bad luck. And it's no matter what I would do, it will happen to me. And all this time I thought about this question. In that time, I was with two hostages. One of them, man, 35 years old. I remember that all the time just lie down and close his eyes. And I told him, Eitan, open your eyes. And he told me, Sapir, I just can't see my new reality. I just want to sleep all the day. I don't want to eat. I don't want to wake up. And the other hostage was a girl, 15 years old, 16 years old. And when I met her, she was so scared. She talked to me about her father, that she saw the terrorists take her father and take her little brother, maybe 7 years old, and she wasn't sure that they are still alive. She told me that she don't know if she has family. When I saw these people, I just thought, about the time when I was under the bed, when I was sure that this is the last time of my life. And I just asked for one thing, and I was saying, God, please give me just one last chance to do something meaningful in my life. I was so sorry that I didn't do something like that. When I met these hostages, I thought that maybe I'm in the worst place, in the darkness. But God sent me to a place that I can be the most meaningful person if this is what I choose. I decided that I have a mission in this place. And when I decided to take a responsibility, I felt completely different. I felt a different person. I didn't have the anxieties, they disappeared. I felt that I can take bad moments and make it to funny moments. I remember that one day one of the terrorists came to us and he said, now I take you to the tunnels. And this girl, she came to me and she said, Sapir, no way, I don't go there. I'm too scared. I didn't know what to say. I told her, you know, we are in Gaza, and we have to see the number one attraction here is the tunnels. So she told me, okay, we go there, we walked, and it's dark place, but she looked at me all the way, so I'm saying, wow, it's wonderful. And then the terrorist asked me, why are you so happy? And I told him, because I'm visiting Gaza. He was very happy about it. But this girl, she told me, still, you have to stop, you are too crazy. Finally, we came inside, and it's really dark place. Everything wet, all the floor wet, all the walls wet. The mat is very moldy, everything is smelly. You have bed bugs and lice, and bad conditions. But I think that my biggest change was, you know, at first I count my time. I count the days, I count the hours. And during the time I just stopped. I decided that I don't live to count the hours and the days. And I'm not sure if I will stay alive and if one day I will come back to Israel. But I want to take this last chance that God gave me and to do the best that I can. And this is what kept me alive and positive all this time, I think.
That's extraordinary. I think it's extraordinary because a lot of people in that situation, probably most, would just withdraw, as you described, become completely disconnected, disassociated, and you managed to say to yourself, this could be the very best chapter of my life. I'm finding purpose here. You reminded me that there was a different former hostage named Or Levy. I'm sure you've heard of him. He was one of the cellmates of Elisha Rabbi, who wrote a bestseller book called Hostages. In any event, for whatever reason, he agreed to meet with me and a group that had come to Israel to see how we could help. We were the first group that he met. And first of all, like yourself, he had a fantastic sense of humor. We took him out to a special restaurant that, you know, the chef, like, was a private event because he didn't want to be around a lot of people. And the chef came in and he's showing me the dishes and he said, what do you think about the food? And Or says, doesn't compare to what we had in Gaza. And we were like, did he really just say that? And he just kept making moments lighter, and he kept finding the most bombastic and shocking things to say that turned real darkness, nothing to make light of, into points of connection and uplift, which was very, which was just really astounding, actually. And then one of the things he said was that when he first arrived, he said he experienced what that gentleman experienced, a complete numbing, completely apathetic, listless. And so, day 52, the terrorists brought a few other hostages. One of them was Hirsch Goldberg, of blessed memory, who many of us would have heard about. It was day 52, he says, I remember it very vividly. And Hirsch looked at the four of us, and he says, guys, you're not going to survive this. I can tell you, you're just not going to survive this. Unless, he says, you remember one thing. And he quoted a line without sharing the source. It's a line that Viktor Frankl writes about in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, which is actually a direct quote from Nietzsche, the philosopher. And the quote is, he who has a why to live for can bear almost any town. And basically what he said to all of them was, you must find a purpose to live for. If you do not identify a purpose, you're not going to survive this. And when I asked Or Levy how you survived, he said, I must have repeated that statement hundreds, if not thousands of times. And actually, it was in the news a few months ago, because when he came out, he got himself a tattoo of this line. You can look it up online. He has a tattoo and it says, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow." And he attributes his survival to the line that Hirsch Goldberg told him in that moment. It was interesting because he said, had I known it came from Viktor Frankl, I would have thought, oh, it's a nice line. I thought this was Hirsch's wisdom that he had learned in the tunnels. And so I was like, wow, what a profound insight. This actually works. I need to try this. And for him, his purpose became living for his wife and his son Amor. He didn't know if his wife had made it. Unfortunately, the very first thing he was told when he left was that she hadn't. But he shared with us something very profound, and maybe you relate to this. He says after he was told the news that his wife didn't make it, he actually remembered seeing her being killed. But he had blocked that out because something inside of him knew that if he would remember that or know that, he wouldn't have the strength. Such a crazy insight into how we are designed, that sometimes our body knows certain things that we experience have to be blocked, otherwise you can't survive. So what you discovered truly, internally, without the help of Viktor Frankl, is something that he shared really kept him alive. It's amazing what you just shared, that when the moment this girl, she needed you, that's when the anxiety passed, and that's when you became a leader, you became, the adult responsible. Sasha, none of us in the show fathom what to share with us what your thought process was. Because in the end, if I understand correctly, at least for a portion of the time, you're alone. When you're alone, you're left to your own thoughts. And you could be, thoughts, as we all know, could be one's mind, brain. It could be a very difficult, very dark place. It can take you down rabbit holes, or the opposite. What was your experience then?
So, as I described, it started maybe the worst way possible. I came to Gaza critically injured in the sense needing a medical treatment. And I really wanted to believe that I would get one, but unfortunately, it's not what happened. They took me to an apartment. They stopped the car after driving to Gaza to a specific place, drove me outside, carried me on the stairs to an apartment. I remember crossing through the living room and looking to the side, and in this living room, there were full family, husband, wives, kids. I crossed this living room, they entered me towards in the room and closed the door. Somebody knocks on the door, enters inside, he looks at me, he talks with the terrorist that brought me, and he seems very confused what he should do. And they told him that he should take care of me, and I understand that because he starts kneeling near me and bandaging my right leg, my shoulder, my head. And when it gets to the left leg, he lifts it up and asks his friends to help him. And he figures out that the best way is to bring a broomstick. He breaks it into two and wrap it around those pieces of stick around my leg with a bandage. So this was my first medical treatment in Gaza. They made us one interrogation in that room, which I lied about most of the things, to be honest. I lied about my profession, about my military service, about Sapir being pregnant. She wasn't, she still is not pregnant. Then I lied that we are married as well, because I understand that they're very religious and I didn't want them to think that it's okay to do or something. After that, I was moved to another place, and there was waiting for me an older man, maybe 50 years old, and he was there seemingly to take care of my leg. And when I got there, the first thing he did is to look at my bandages, some of them he fixed, and about my left leg, what he did was to call somebody from outside, told him something. He brought a piece of grill or like a metal thing, like how it's called, mesh, yeah. And He cut it, bent it around my leg, and wrapped it around with elastic bandage. And was my second medical treatment in Gaza. And this is the way I was for a week, not knowing if I will live or die, not knowing if it's just a temporary thing before they will shut the video and kill me. To be honest, I was very afraid. I was alone. I didn't have anybody to consult with, anybody to reflect with. The only thing was around me are terrorists that were pretty happy about the situation, to be honest. They were also very happy with the fact they caught me. I was much bigger than I used to train about. And they were very satisfied to get me. After a week, they decided that, well, it's not going to heal by itself, and they wanted to keep me alive, so they took me to an hospital eventually. We drove there on a motorcycle while I was covered. They disguised me as a sheikh with clothes and hide my face. We get to the hospital, enter inside, a lot of civilians, until we reach a specific place that was prepared for me. I couldn't see much because they didn't allow me to lift my head up, but I see in the corner of my eye while I passed on the wheelchair that they put me on. 2 guards armed with black uniform inside the hospital, and it was quiet, no civilians around. I got inside this MRI, like scan room, to take an X-ray shot, and there I see this man who put this metal thing on my leg. He's apparently a doctor working in the hospital. He took the shots of my leg, shared the photos with me and with the terrorists who were responsible of guarding me. They talked a little bit what to do, and I remember seeing these X-ray images, and you can see that the bone is completely broken. You don't need to be an expert in order to see that. They decided to take me to a small storage place in the hospital itself, and there I waited until came the nurse. And this nurse came inside the room wearing this hospital uniform. He looked at me, and I remember seeing him very disgusted. He didn't want to treat me at all. He was even more disgusted than a terrorist because he didn't feel any accomplishment, any happiness about the fact. He just was responsible for treating me in the moment, and he didn't want to do that. So he grabbed my leg, put it on 2 cardboard boxes that he piled on top of each other, unwrapped this metal thing that was holding everything in place, and started, like trying to put it into place, stretching it, pulling it, and eventually told another terrorist to bring cast material from somewhere, and he made the cast on my leg just there in the storage room. And this was my final medical treatment in Gaza. I then was moved to another house, an apartment actually. And there I thought to myself, well, maybe things will get better. Now I got treated, I understand that I'm not going to die, at least not for now. Maybe there will be a deal signed, the war will stop eventually. I started to understand that I need to find a way to gather intel and information. So I started learning Arabic, and I understood that the war is getting worse and worse actually. And eventually I was in Khan Yunis, and they also entered Khan Yunis. I think it was in day number 107 that they entered the specific area that I was held at. At that point, thank God, I managed to start walking. It was only 2 weeks I started limping. I could walk, but barely, and it saved my life because the army came close, and they got stressed out about it. I remember the first night that the army came close, they woke me up at 12 a.m., telling me to go, stand up and go to the kitchen. They set me between the 2 of them. There were 2 terrorists at the time guarding me. One of them looking at the entrance, one of them looking dead eye straight on me, seeing what I'm going to do all night. Just waiting to hear if somebody comes to the door trying to break it open, and if it's the case, I would have been killed. We passed this night, but it wasn't the last time that I was threatened to be killed. After this event, it was 40 days of survival. I remember we got to the point of eating only dates. I remember that I was going around, I had this little backpack, I was going around with the terrorists, disguised as one of the civilians, on foot. And I had at the beginning a little bit of clothes to change, but eventually I threw them away. I took some food that I found in specific apartments that we were entering, every single day, different place. I was just trying to survive. And after these 40 days, I eventually managed to get out of this area, and they moved me to Rafah. At that point, it was in February, all the civilians were in Rafah. And there was a lot of markets. I remember that when I was driving there on a motorcycle, seeing all these markets on the beach, a lot of bastas, it's called, these small places that sell food, and I told myself, maybe my situation will change now, maybe I will get fed better, I may regain my weight a little bit. I was very weak. But I found out that it's not exactly the case. They moved me to a place and put me in a wooden cage they prepared for me, like a very small sukkah, that you cannot see anything from behind. It was 1 meter and 2 meter, only mothers could fit in. And there I spent maybe 2 months before I was moved again to Khan Yunis. And this time they isolated me completely. The terrorists were guarding me from outside the room I was staying at. They gave me a bucket to make my pee and all the other things throughout the day. At night they would allow me to go out and put it in the toilet and wash it. And I was spending day after day completely alone until the rescue operation of Arlon. It happened in June 24 when Noah Gamani and the remaining and the 3 other hostages were released, thank God alive. They came in the room, one of the terrorists, and told me there was a rescue operation. All the hostages are dead. We killed a lot of soldiers. Now things are gonna change. We're gonna put you in the tunnels. I told myself, now we find the time to put me in the tunnels. All this time I've been above ground, experiencing death every single moment. And after all I've been through, now I deserve also to go to the tunnels. And I'll be honest, I was very desperate. But they covered my face, my eyes, dragged me into the car, we drove around in circles, lose orientation. They took me out, grabbed me by the hand, led me through a house, and set me on the floor in one of the rooms. Blindfolded me, took off the blindfold, and I remember seeing in front of my eyes a shaft, a very small hole in the ground. And I look at it, and they're lighting their torches on it, and I see it's a very tight space. I couldn't believe that I would fit in. And I look at the terrorist, and I tell them, "You want me to go inside?" He said, "Yes, go inside." And I told him, "But it's too small." He tells me, "Go inside." So I did. And it was small. The width of the tunnel, it was around my width. The height from the stage was like that, at the highest, 170 meters, maybe even less. And sometimes you need to crawl in order to cross specific sections. But it was surprisingly long. It was very, very long. And the thing is that I served in intelligence when I was in the army. I knew a little bit about what is going on in Gaza, more than a little bit, but I knew what is going on in Gaza, and I was surprised by the length of this tunnel. And I reached eventually my destination. It was 30 meters below ground. They told me that, but my estimation was also the same. It seems very deep. It was a small space, a little bit bigger than this stage. They prepared a cage door for me, so I will not be able to escape. And when I first entered, I see this place, and first of all, what strikes me is the smell. As Sapir said, it's very humid, no air, so especially after so long and the war prolonged, all the mattresses that were there were very moldy and dirty and stinking. And I'm sensitive to smells, but this wasn't my issue. My issue was understanding that this is now the last place I'm going to see in Gaza. There are only 2 options. One of them is me getting alive out and going back to my home. The other one, which was much more likely, is me being killed in this tunnel without knowing how much it's going to take. And I started to spend the time there. Sometimes I was alone completely. The terrorists would have come, give me something to eat once a day, and go. Sometimes the terrorists would have spent time with me a little bit, depending on the situation. I remember that, all the bugs and bed bugs and cockroaches and all this, smell and humidity, it's harsh, but this is not the biggest problem, at least in my case. There were two main problems that were very harsh for me. The first is that most of the day, maybe half of the time, you are in complete darkness, pitch dark. You put your hand in front of your face, you cannot see anything. Complete darkness. To a degree that I learned, well, it wasn't a big space, but I still learned every single thing where it is. I managed to go to the bathroom without light, everything. The other thing was the silence, complete silence. A silence of the kind that makes your ear make this beeping sound because there is no sound. And to be honest, I was losing it. I managed to gather some strength and because of faith and a lot of other factors that benefited that, but I still was having collapse moments and hitting myself in the wall, trying to feel alive. And after 8.5 months, roughly in the tunnel, and for 98 days in general, in captivity, and eventually came out.
You're saying words that describe a reality, but I don't think any of us have any concept of what that reality feels like. Well, I know that we live in a world where we never experience that kind of suffering, and we definitely live in a world where we never experience that level of darkness. How did you talk to yourself? When you had moments where you felt you were about to collapse, what did you draw? Did you sing?
So, when I came to captivity, I didn't have the right tools to deal with what I needed to go through. I remember that I came and I was so desperate and frustrated with everything. As Sapir said, I wanted to evade the situation, I wanted to imagine what I could have done differently, and I wanted to cling to hope that maybe one day I will be released. And this is what kept me going, but it cannot keep you going for long. Hoping to get over with the situation is not something that we can withstand. It's in every single day of the struggle, especially when the situation escalates more and more. And I remember that I was lucky enough, for some reason, without even nobody teaching me that before. I came from a very secular community. I was raised in a kibbutz, and religion had no part of my life at all. I wasn't taught to pray, and I didn't know any prayers. I didn't have an open Tehillim once. The only thing I knew a little bit is from lessons of Tanakh in schools, which I mostly didn't go to. And for some reason, when I was in captivity, maybe a month into captivity, understanding that I'm alone, understanding that I'm losing it, understanding that I need to survive and I don't have the right tools, something inside of me awakened. And I remember that I'm sitting there mostly by myself. The terrorists are around me, but I'm usually by myself. And started to reflect about my life. I was looking back, looking what I've been through, what led to this moment, what things I did right or wrong. And then I started to think about the people I care about. I started to think about my mother, my father, Sapir, my grandmother, my friends. And at that point, I find a lot of strength just thinking good thoughts about them, praying for them in a sense, really from my heart, from my soul, not something that, from TV, something real, original from deep inside. And after I did that, I felt like a good, big relief. And suddenly, I felt like my compass was recalibrated to the right direction. I started to see things a little bit more positively. And without even thinking about getting out of the situation, it was just a very refreshing moment in this darkness. And I remember that I said to myself, well, it's nice, but you never prayed before, you don't believe in God, like, what are you doing? It's not you. It's not for you. This is because of you, the situation probably. So you are doing it. You are trying to evade. And I was really criticized about myself. And I told myself, like, stop doing it. It's foolish. But I understand something, and I told myself, you know what? It helped you. Try doing it more. And so I did. And I kept doing it. And when I was doing it, I also started reflecting about what I was criticized about. I reflected about godliness. I started to say to myself, well, if you're doing it, it helps. It's something that is rooted deep inside of you. It didn't come from nowhere. It's something deep inside your soul. It means you have a soul. And I started to think about this world and about all this. I come from the background of physics and mathematics. I know there are rules for everything. But then I said to myself, I remember this physics teacher, went to his after hours, like, to ask questions. And I told him, like, how do you know this equation works? And he told me, well, this is just the laws of nature. I told him, well, but how you checked it? And he said, well, we did experiments, physicists, and we found that it works. And if one day it will not work, we will need to find a new equation. But thank God for now it works. And I understand that there are rules in nature surrounding us. And all of that I found within me, and the rules that I found surrounding me, really navigated me towards the understanding that godliness exists, and it's only a question of how I should connect to that. And really praying from my heart towards my dear and loved ones, toward myself, connected me to this thing and made me, as Sapir said, more positive towards everything that was happening around me. Even in situation when I was put into this cage in Laflach, it was like 5 months into captivity. I wasn't feeling sorry for myself. I said, well, now I have a little bit of privacy. I don't need to see all these terrorists around me all the time. Now I can start making physiotherapy to my leg and start taking care of them. Now is the time, I don't know, to reflect about things without being bothered. I try to figure out every single positive thing that I can and try to do as much as I can actively to survive. But also, the perspective was very important. So when I got to the McDonald's, I was prepared, thank God, and I wasn't in a situation that I was very desperate. But still, with all the tools that I had, being there alone, in the darkness, in the silence, it's very, very hard to overcome.
The process of discovery you described is mind-blowing because it's from within. And I think that I can only speak for myself. I don't think I've come close to the discoveries you made to actually discover from within, which I think is exactly what you described. So thank you for sharing that. It's very powerful. And if I can read between the lines, it sounds to me also that perhaps what you're saying is that the journey was gradual, and the first part of your journey, in a certain sense, gave you the tools to deal with the successive parts that became even more difficult. Yes. Hashgacha pratit, specific divine providence. Except that I've never heard someone apply that to their journey of suffering in the way you just did. That is to say, not just the suffering at large, but when the suffering happened, at which stage in your journey, that too was very precise and with cosmic intention. Let's turn the lens to you, Sapir, and talk about the moment of absolute exhilaration when you learned the news that you were being released. How did you learn it? Where were you at the time? What went through your mind? And what was that experience of actually being liberated from such captivity like?
So, after 55 days, one of the terrorists came to me and he said, today it's 90% that you go back to your home. But I didn't believe him because every day he's saying the same. I remember that after a few minutes I saw a very influenced terrorist, and I remember that he released a young girl 3 days before. So I understood that I go back to my home. And this way to Israel, wow, I was so excited, especially when I came inside Israel and I saw all the people around me come and hug the car and say, wow, we waited for you all this time, and I heard screams in the street, and I just looked at them and I waved. And then I came to the hospital, I met my parents, and they felt that they got their life back. It was a very special moment for me, but also it was very complicated. I felt that I came from another world, and now I don't know how to live my life in this world, like what my mission in this world. It was very hard to me. I tried to, I couldn't wear the same clothes that I had. I couldn't go to my room in my parents' house. I couldn't see something that reminds me myself before the October 7, because I felt very different and I wanted to keep about this change. I was very angry about my parents when they eat in the hotel and they complain about the food, for example. I was angry about many things, and they say to my brother, Sapir become crazy. But no, I didn't. It just changed. When I came back, I also thought, what the best thing that I can do in this world. And I met his mother. She released the day before me. When she came back from the captivity, she discovered that her husband killed and her only child in the captivity. We didn't know what the situation with Sasha. We wasn't sure if he's alive. And she felt like she lost everything in her life. I decided to move to live with her in a hotel, in the same hotel, and it wasn't an easy decision. It was very hard for me. Sometimes she came to me and she said, Sapir, I don't want to live anymore. It's enough for me. And I didn't know what to say, so I started to promise her grandchildren. At first it was twins, girls. But I remember that after a few months she came to me and she said the twins is not enough. And she was very serious. She told me, Sapir, I decided that it's enough for me. Just say to Sasha that I love him and please wait for him. I trust you. So at the end, we have 6 kids. Now she's waiting for the results. So it wasn't easy, and until today, I didn't become to the same job that I had. I was a software engineer. I can't do it anymore. I can't sit in front of a computer. I feel a little bit different person, and now I need to find myself, my new self, and like new job and everything new. Just I stay with you.
Wow. It almost sounds to me like what you're saying is that, in a certain sense, in Gaza, you have found a purpose. Once you left Gaza, well, what's my purpose now? And then you found a new purpose, which was to support Sasha's mother. And then the question is, I remember I actually wrote a book titled On Purpose. It's all about the Lubavitcher's wisdom on how to find your purpose in life. First of all, it will be an absolute honor to present you the copy. Although you could write the book yourself at this point. But one of the interesting things I came across at the time was that the 2 most vulnerable times in a person's life is the first year of life, and also the year a man retires. The year a man retires, when a person is retired. And the logic behind that is because a person will have, for decades, found a purpose, attached themselves to that purpose to the point that it becomes part of their identity, and then from one day to the next, they need to find a new purpose. So, it sounds to me like two things. First of all, this itself is profoundly purposeful, or at least I can talk for myself. It's beyond moving to hear your words. But also it sounds to me from everything you described, you have an extremely maternal instinct that whatever job you find will, just where I said, will bring strength and will bring courage and will bring guidance and will bring healing to those who are lucky enough to be looked after by you. Sasha, on to you. You know, a lot of what you described, and you didn't spell it out necessarily so much, was that what we call the civilian population of Gaza were extremely hostile and in many cases lethal, if not for the intervention of the terrorists. Ironically enough, you wouldn't necessarily be here. And that's obviously it's a very consistent part of the story that comes forth and comes through. But my question to you is if you experienced any moments of humanity, of compassion, the breaking down of those kinds of natural...
When I got to Gaza and I looked around and I'm by myself and I see these terrorists in front of my eyes and I see them interacting with each other, and I tell myself, well, those are humans. Seemingly just like every other human, but they're not, because they did what they did, and the atrocities of kidnapping me and my family and hurting so many people that I know. And I told myself, how can it be that a human being can just do such a thing to other fellow human being? There must be some sort of reason. I just wanted to believe there is, because unfortunately they weren't aliens. And I told myself, I'm just not able to even try to build some sort of a relationship, even talking to them, before I will be able to get an answer to this question. Luckily enough, I was getting this answer pretty quickly. I was held after the hospital. They brought me to this apartment, and the owner of this apartment had a little girl. We were staying in his house, so one day, after 2 weeks or so, after being there, he brought this little girl there. He introduced her to me, and she was very shy. To be honest, she was hiding behind her father's leg all the way until he reached close enough towards me and told her, introduce yourself. And she came, and just came closer and hit me on my right leg, and go and hide behind her father's leg again. I was surprised, to be honest, but also wasn't so surprised. And I looked at them, and he was discussing with her something in Arabic. I couldn't understand Arabic that much at this point, so I asked him in a little bit of English, what happened? So he told me, look, I told her that you're an Israeli Jew and you're here because we took you. You're an hostage now. And because of that, and she knows that she needs to hit a Jew and Israeli, so she hit you. But I told her that you're fine and she shouldn't hit you anymore. I told her, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Said, no problem. It would keep bringing her more and more times. And she started to open up to me. She's just a little girl, she was 3 years old, and eventually she was able to sit with me and without her father around. He will do some things in the house, in the apartment, and I will be sitting with her in the living room. This is where I always was. And she was playing with me a little bit, and eventually, after maybe a month, we were sitting on the floor, me, her father, and this little girl, and just discussing on something. I don't even remember what it was. And she suddenly stood up without any reason, approached me, fell on me, gave me a hug and a kiss on the cheek. And I was amazed. I said to myself, first of all, wow, it's the first time of compassion that I ever felt since I came here. It was refreshing. And second, I said, what happened? Like, how it changed. And while I was in this apartment with her father will give her, for example, a huge flat, well, huge, compared to her, it was double the size of this little girl, Islamic Jihad flag to wave and chant songs about destroying Israel, killing Jews. He will give her like history lessons to me and her about why the Jews are bad, why we deserve to be hurt. He was very proud of her being a jihadistic figure in the future. He was telling me, she will be like me, she will be Islamic Jihad, she will be even better than me. I told them, well, you know, if this is what you want, and no, you know, I'm not trying to hurt myself, I'm trying to find a way to sympathize with that, although it's very hard. And I understood something at that moment with this little girl. I understood that they are raised from a very young age to this hatred. They are raised and encouraged to violence towards us. And it's not only in the family, it's also in the educational system, but in the family it's the most problematic thing. When it's the cultural idea that this is our prevailing world mission to do this kind of stuff, when this is our mission in life and this is our purpose, and purpose as we described is a very strong thing, it's very hard to change that in an adult mind. And unfortunately, after a while, I left this place, I moved to another place and so on, but I kept in my mind this little girl because I told myself that eventually, as I forgot a lot of what happened to me when I was 3 years old, she will forget this encounter with me. But she will grow up, probably to be as her father was, jihadistic as he is, maybe even worse as he was. And I told myself that unfortunately we are dealing with humans, and humans can be educated to do horrible things, and we can see throughout history in Nazi Germany and in Spain and in Morocco and Iraq and Iran and all these places. And until we will not change the educational system and this culture of hate, blind hate towards us, it will never change.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful. It's a story that has two lessons, obviously. It's a story that talks about indoctrination, but I think one takeaway is it's also a story of hope. That sometimes you could penetrate that over time and through better education. You could replace hatred with compassion. Were there any signs of life that you received when Sasha was alive?
So when I came back from the captivity, I discovered that Sasha is an hostage. I didn't know that. And after maybe 5 months, the Islamic Jihad released the first video of Sasha. We were so excited. It's the first time that we knew for sure that he's alive. And also in this video, Sasha mentioned me, so I was very excited about that. After maybe 8 months, they released the second video, and in that video, Sasha didn't mention me. So I talked with your mother about it. And she told me, no, he forgot, or you have to say what they tell him to say. And I say, no. I was sure that he wants to release me. He wants for me that I will find a new partner and it will continue in my life. And when he came back from the captivity, I asked him about it, and he told me this sentence. He said, Sapir, I didn't want you to wait for someone that will never come back. He didn't think that he will come back alive from the captivity.
Maybe a little bit in that spirit, Sapir, can you share how the experience of the captivity, how has it affected your relationship with each other? Sasha, if you have anything to add. Or if you have any rebuttals, feel free.
So, as I mentioned before, our relationship before the captivity wasn't so good. We were so different, and we're still completely different. But I felt that Sasha, he didn't have appreciate for life and for family. All the time, he just say how much he had bad luck. And I look at him and I say, wow, he had everything. This person has everything. He's so pretty and so clever. What am I listening to you? But all the time he was falling to skull, frustrated. And I say to myself, I can suffer it. Also that I keep kosher, I want kosher kitchen. And he say, okay, you know what, I can accept it. But just don't come to me one day and say, for example, that you want to keep Shabbat. On October 7, I decided to keep Shabbat. And a part of this promise was that it's even if it will separate between of us. All this time when I waited for him, I thought to myself, if I do the right thing, because I'm not so young, now I'm 32, and I was sure that it just can't be. And I'll say, you know, when I came back from the captivity, I felt so connected to him, even like much more before the October 7. I talked to him every day, I spoke about him and I prayed for him. And I couldn't see myself with a different partner. All the time I say, God, why you did it to me? Like, why you make me to wait for someone that did not believe in you? But I felt some power that caused me to wait all this time. And when he came back, his mother all the time asked me, okay, she was secular, completely secular, and she became religious. So she asked me what completely religious. She asked me how she is supposed to tell it to Sasha, because if she will tell him, he will run back to Gaza. So when he came back, she said to him, Sasha, now I'm religious. And he said, wow, good for you, I'm so happy for you. And I look at him and I say, I'm keep Shabbat. I was very proud about it. And he say, I know that God exists. He say, I just found it in the captivity. I felt that I'm in a movie, like Sasha believed in God. It's a miracle. It's like to see God in front of my eyes. And after that, I remember on the helicopter, I wrote him what the first thing that you want to do. And he told me, I just want to go to a nice place and sit under the sky. It's not Sasha. Sasha is not a romantic person. And finally he appreciates everything, every simple thing, and appreciate family, and finally he wants kids and not afraid of kids. So what I want to say is that I'm very happy that I waited for you all this time. And Be'ezrat Hashem, in 1 month and a half, we will stand under the chuppah.
Sapir, something I came across the other day, literally I think it was yesterday or the day before, and it reflects a common theme that one of the, I guess, astonishing aspects of the last 2 years is how many people who were taken hostage, who may have been irreligious before October 7th, and sometimes militantly so, returned from Gaza with a much greater sense of connection to spirituality, to the soul, to God. And actually, Omer Shem Tov, I don't know if you came across this, but he spends 505 days in captivity. He was recently on an Israeli late-night talk show, and he shared that while he was hostage in Gaza, he started to observe Shabbat. So the show's, one of the hosts said, what does that even mean? I mean, what could you have done in captivity on Shabbat that would violate Shabbat? I mean, there was not much. You know, you're going to go on a fun Jeep tour of Gaza or something. But listen to what he said, Omer, something so moving. He said, when he was held underground, he was given a small flashlight. That was the only source of illumination at his disposal. And on Shabbat, he didn't turn it on. Sitting in total darkness, but knowing that he was lit up from inside by something much greater, much more eternal. I found that very moving. And it's not so abstract, because it seems that, Sasha, in many respects, your journey also evolved, as you described earlier, very movingly. We could really sit here for another month and a half until you're ready to walk to the Koban, because you're such a wellspring of depth and wisdom and inspiration. But I guess, in summation, perhaps, Sapir and Sasha, could you share what would be your message to the Jewish people?
Okay, so, you know, when I came back from the captivity, sometimes I just went to my room, locked the door, and I cried because I didn't know how can I help now to the hostages. I didn't know what to do. And I asked myself, in what you believe? And just one word came to my mind, that it was unity. So I decided to go to many communities, and I spoke a lot about unity. But I didn't really understand, what the meaning of this word. One day, I had a dream at night, and in this dream I was in the gym, and I had a bag on my back, and I just make squats. One of the trainers, he came to me and he said that he wanted to train with the bag, but he couldn't lift it up. He couldn't take it. So we called to the other trainers, and they came one after one to try to take my bag, but they couldn't. So he asked me what you have inside and how you can carry that. And I told him that this bag full with all of my lifetime experiences, so just I can carry it. And when I woke up, I thought about this dream, that every one of us has his own bag, and we cannot switch the bags, but we can help each other to carry the bag. When I came back to Israel, and all this time that I waited for Sasha and I was with his mother, we felt that all the Jewish people help us to carry our very heavy bag. And this is what we need to continue.
Are you guys going to write a book together?
Probably not together. Each of us have a different observation about what happened. Some of it similar, different time frames, different journeys, and maybe we can incorporate some things. But yeah, it's hopefully we'll see. You know, it's also a business in this sense. Unfortunately, and it's not very easy to write a book nowadays. Commercial stuff. So hopefully it will.
Actually, when I met with him, I put with you, so I helped him. I put him in touch with a company. He's working on a book. I'm very happy to help as well. I'm serious. There are ways to do this, and please God, maybe one takeaway could be to create the infrastructure to help bring your story in this incredible wisdom, which is probably just a very small reflection, a very small percentage of what you have to offer the world. Well, friends, it's been quite a moving evening, and there's so much to unpack, and I, for one, am going to think and rethink about so much of what you shared, and I'm sure the same is for each one of us. But if there's a few takeaways from this, I think one of those takeaways is, as you shared, Sapir, and from Sasha, your lives, that when we go through, I don't even want to use the word painful experiences in this context, because I don't think any of us have experienced anything remotely similar to what we've experienced. First of all, from Sasha, we learned to try to find the positive, because that's truly helpful. And Sapir, you've taught us about finding ways to give, to serve, because in that moment, you transform the sense of weight, burden, layer upon layer, into a clear sense of mission. And for both of you, I think we learn that sometimes the greatest discoveries happen in the most unexpected of places, and sometimes the greatest breakthroughs happen during the most painful and difficult times. And so perhaps, as you did, you spoke about so eloquently, with your example in mind, I think you can be empowered in our lives to do the same. And finally, that message of Jewish unity is so important. When it comes to our enemies, they don't distinguish between one Jew and another, as we've learned from Hitler to Hamas. Why is it that when we come to our own, we have all kinds of factions, infighting, and so on? So again, if there's a practical takeaway for each one of us, it is that we should love deeper and more broadly and more unconditionally every member of the Jewish people and beyond. As Rabbi Sachs of blessed memory once taught, when he was speaking about the Lubavitch Rebbe, blessed memory, who actually earlier this week he marked his ascension to Chabad leadership, that the Rebbe made it his mission to seek out every Jew and love the way they were once hunted down and hate. So let us do the inverse. Let us take all of that that's directed at us and turn it into deeper connection between us. And please God, in this merit, may we all be blessed, both individually and collectively, both our people and all people, with revealed good and with a new world order, one that ushers in, as our sages and prophets of old have talked about, a world of peace where no nation will learn war against another, and a world where we will truly experience lasting peace once and for all. Amen. And if I could take one final moment and express what we're all feeling for both of you, which is deep love, and extend you a heartfelt Mazal Tov. There's a saying in the Gemara that as much pain as you went through in the past, that's as much joy you should experience in the future times 1,000-fold. And may your promise to your future mother-in-law materialize as Rabbi Hashem, and may we all hear the good news in due course of this beautiful couple building a beautiful family and continuing to be such a strong, powerful, and profound sense of light to Am Yisrael and to Kol Olam Kulo. On behalf of us all, words cannot describe how grateful we are to you for sharing your wisdom with us. And friends, it's probably, I think, one of the last appearances you're going to make, because you're soon getting married, and then Sasha, you guys are going to find jobs. And so I really think tonight was a unique opportunity, and we're so blessed that we were all together to share this journey. I'd like to invite everybody to please be outstanding. Join me as we sing the Shema together. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Give a very final, very warm send-off to Sasha and Sapir.
הלב נלחם בגאבו, כולם יחזרו הביתה, נחכה להם למטה. כולם יחזרו הביתה, נחכה להם למטה. הלוואי נדע בשורות טובות.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining.